I'm standing on my parents' porch on Christmas Eve, holding 2 trays of cranberry rolls I baked from scratch. The door is open only as far as the chain will allow. My father looks through the gap and says, "This dinner is for family, Nora, not favors." Then I hear laughter from inside, and one voice makes my stomach drop. Colin, my best friend, is sitting at their table. And somehow, I'm the one left outside in the cold. My name is Nora Whitaker. And for most of my life, I confused being needed with being loved. 3 weeks before Christmas, my mother stopped calling me. That may not sound like much, but in our family, December always began with her phone calls. She would ask what I was bringing, who was allergic to nuts, whether my father had picked up his blood pressure pills, and whether my sister Brooke had remembered to pay her car insurance. She never really needed advice. She needed me to handle things. Every year, I made the grocery list. I checked the oven schedule. I reminded Dad to salt the front steps. I texted Brooke 3 times so she would not forget the one thing she promised to bring. And I did it all because I thought that was what good daughters did. But that December, my phone stayed quiet. When I finally called Mom, she answered like I had interrupted something. "Hi, Mom. Are we still doing Christmas Eve at 6? There was a pause. "Oh, I'm not sure yet. Your father has been tired." "Tired from what?" "He has a lot on his mind." I waited for more. Nothing came. "I can come by Saturday and help clean," I said. "I can pick up the ham too." "No," she said too quickly. "Don't come by." The words hung there. Then she added, not this weekend." I told myself she was stressed. Dad had been complaining about money again. Brooke had moved back into their house after another breakup. My mother always acted as if other people's emergencies were storms she had to survive. So I let it go. That was my first mistake. A few days later, I stopped by with furnace filters. Dad had bought the wrong size twice, and the house had smelled like dust for a month. I still had a key. I had always had a key. The moment I walked in, the living room went silent. Mom was on the couch with her laptop open. Dad stood near the fireplace. Brooke sat on the rug, smiling at something on her phone. Then they saw me. Brooke flipped her phone face down. Mom closed the laptop so fast it snapped. Dad frowned. "Nora," he said, "you should call before you come over." I texted Mom. Mom looked at the carpet. I must have missed it. I held up the filters. I brought the right size. Nobody said thank you. Dad pointed toward the hallway. "Put them by the basement door." I waited for someone to ask me to sit down. Nobody did. This was the house where I had learned to ride a bike. The house where I had stayed up late filling out college applications at the kitchen table. The house where I had held Brooke while she cried over men who never deserved her tears. And suddenly, I felt like a stranger who had walked into a private meeting. I set the filters down. Brooke gave me a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Busy day?" I asked. "Kind of." "With what?" She shrugged. "Just stuff. Just stuff." I drove home with a tight feeling in my chest. The worst part was, none of it was new enough to shock me. My family had always needed me more than they liked me. When I was 14, I learned how to call the electric company because Mom cried every time a bill came with red letters on it. When I was 17, I worked weekends at a bakery so I could help pay for Brooke's senior trip after she spent her money on concert tickets. When I was 24, Dad called from a repair shop because his truck needed brakes. He said he was embarrassed. I paid over the phone. When I was 28, I used my savings to fix part of my parents' roof because Dad had let the insurance lapse. They never asked what it cost me. They only sighed with relief and moved on. There is a kind of work inside families that nobody names. The person who remembers. The person who fixes. The person who pays before everyone else panics. After a while, people stop seeing that person as a person. They see her as a light switch. They flip her on when the room gets dark. I was that switch. And I was starting to burn out. The first person I wanted to talk to was Colin Mercer. Colin had been my best friend since college. He had seen me cry in parking lots. He had helped me move apartments. Every Thursday, we got coffee at the same diner and complained about life like it was a sport. So I texted him, "Coffee tonight? My family is acting weird and I need someone normal." The message showed delivered. Then read. Then nothing. An hour passed. Then 2. At 9 I called. Straight to voicemail. Hey, it's me. Call when you can. He didn't. The next morning he texted, sorry. Swamped. Rain check? That was not Colin. Colin answered with jokes, voice notes, and pictures of his dog. He did not send polite little sentences that sounded like they had been approved by a lawyer. I told myself he was busy. His event company had been growing. 2 years earlier, he had asked me to guarantee a small insurance bond so he could qualify for better venues. He said it was temporary. He said my name would sit in a file and never be touched. He said, "You're the only person I trust." I believed him. By the second week of December, the silence became a pattern. My Aunt Marcy saw me at the grocery store and turned her cart into the frozen aisle so fast she almost hit a display of peppermint ice cream. My cousin Hannah stopped replying to my comments online. Brooke posted a picture of my parents' dining room table covered in candles, then deleted it 10 minutes after I liked it. I felt ridiculous. I was 32 years old, sitting on my couch, refreshing social media like a teenager trying to prove everyone hated her. So I decided to ask directly. I ran into Brooke at a pharmacy 2 days later. She was buying red lipstick, gift bags, and a bottle of cheap champagne. Getting ready for Christmas Eve? I asked. Her face changed. What? Christmas Eve. Mom has been weird about plans. Are we still doing dinner at the house? Brooke stared at the card reader. I don't know. Ask Mom. I did. She dodged me. Maybe she's tired. Is Colin coming? Her hand froze over the receipt. It was only half a second. But I saw it. Why would Colin come? She asked. I don't know. You tell me. She grabbed her bag. I have to go. Brooke. But she was already walking away. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and wrote down everything. Mom's strange calls. Dad angry when I came over. Brooke hiding her phone. Colin ignoring me. Marcy avoiding me. The deleted photo. On paper, it looked childish. Like hurt feelings pretending to be evidence. But my gut knew. Something was happening around me. And I was the only one not invited to know what it was. 2 days before Christmas Eve, I drove to my parents' house with a green bean casserole and a bag of groceries. Not because they asked. Because that was what I did. I filled empty spaces before anyone admitted they were empty. Mom's car was in the driveway. Dad's truck was there. Brooke's blue sedan sat behind it. I knocked. No one answered. So I used my key. Mom? It's me. The kitchen was empty. The house smelled like cinnamon and furniture polish. Wrapped gifts sat under the tree. More gifts than usual. Expensive paper. Perfect bows. Mom's laptop sat open on the dining table. I was not trying to snoop. At least, that is what I told myself as I walked past it. Then a new email banner slid across the screen. From Brooke. Subject line, Christmas clean slate. My name was in the preview. I stopped. I knew I should walk away. But there are moments when your body understands danger before your manners catch up. I touched the trackpad. The email thread opened. There were messages from Mom, Dad, Brooke, Aunt Marcy, Uncle Dean, 2 cousins, and Colin. Colin. The first thing I saw was a dinner list. Russell and Elaine. Brooke. Marcy and Dean. Hannah. Colin. The neighbors. Not me. Then I scrolled. Mom had written, I'm worried Nora will show up with food again. Brooke replied, she won't if everyone keeps quiet. Dad wrote, I want one peaceful holiday without her acting like every favor is a receipt. Every favor is a receipt. I read that sentence 3 times. The roof. The truck brakes. The utility bills. Brooke's rent. Mom's medicine. All of it had become receipts in their minds. Not because I demanded repayment. Because my existence reminded them they owed me gratitude. Then I saw Colin's message. I haven't answered her much. She suspects something, but not the real thing. Keep dinner normal. After dessert, we get her to sign the statement. If she thinks it's about helping family, she'll do it. My hands went cold. Statement? I kept scrolling until I found an attachment. Affidavit of personal responsibility. My name was typed at the top. The document said I acknowledged opening certain credit accounts for family expenses. It said I accepted full responsibility for the balances. It said no one had used my information without consent. They were not just excluding me. They were planning to feed me dinner, smile at me, corner me, and make me sign away the truth. I closed the laptop. Then I picked up my casserole and groceries and walked out. For the first time in my life, I left my parents' house without fixing anything. The next morning, Christmas Eve, there was a letter in my mailbox from Harvest Federal Credit Union. I did not bank there. The envelope said urgent notice. Inside was a statement for a home repair line of credit in my name. Balance due, $18,940. 90 days past due. I sat down on the front steps and read it again. My name, part of my social security number. My parents' address as the mailing address. I went inside, opened my laptop, and pulled my credit report. My score had dropped from 812 to 641. There was the Harvest Federal line of credit. There was a Northgate Motors truck loan for $39,700. There was a Riverline cash advance for $7,400. All opened within the last year. All tied to my parents' address. The truck loan made me laugh once, a sharp, ugly sound. Dad had shown up in a newer truck that spring. He said he had found a good deal from a guy. I had even told him it looked nice. I had complimented the vehicle he bought with my stolen name. Then I found the old email. 3 years earlier, Mom had asked me to send my tax return because she was confused about family health insurance paperwork. I had sent it. Full name, birth date, social security number, address history. I had handed them the key. They waited until I was not looking to use it. For an hour, I could not move. There is a special kind of grief that comes when betrayal becomes paperwork. A cruel word can be denied. A cold look can be explained away. But a loan document sits there with your name on it, calm and official, proving someone made a plan to hurt you. I wanted to call Mom and scream. I wanted to call Dad and ask how he slept. I wanted to call Brooke and say, "Did you watch them do this?" Instead, I made coffee. Then I made folders. One for the credit accounts. One for the emails. One for Colin. Because after seeing his name in that thread, I knew I had to check everything. I logged into the state business portal using the guarantor access I had forgotten I still had. At first, everything looked boring. Licenses, permits, venue applications, insurance certificates. Then I saw my name listed as risk coordinator on 3 contracts. I was not a risk coordinator. I did graphic design for a medical supply company. I clicked deeper. There were insurance certificates with my electronic signature attached. My signature had been copied from the original bond paperwork. The dates were new. The contracts were new. Then I found a vendor payment file. Monthly consulting payments to Blue Ribbon Strategy. I searched the company registry. Owner, Brooke Whitaker. Business address, my parents' house. Colin had been paying my sister $4,500 a month for consulting that did not exist. My best friend had used my name to get contracts, forged my approval on insurance documents, and paid my sister through a fake business. And my family knew. That was why he was invited. He was not a guest. He was part of the cover-up. By noon, I had called a lawyer. By 2, I had frozen my credit. By 4, I had drafted reports for the credit union, the motor lender, the cash advance company, the state insurance office, and the city licensing board. I did not send them yet. Maybe some small, foolish part of me wanted one last chance to be wrong. Maybe I wanted to stand in front of them and see if anyone flinched. Christmas Eve came early and cold. I showered. I put on a navy dress, black boots, and the wool coat I saved for important meetings. I packed the cranberry rolls in one tray and the green bean casserole in another. Then I placed the folders in the passenger seat. The drive to my parents' house felt longer than usual. Every decorated porch looked warm from the road. Every window had a tree glowing behind it. For a moment, I hated all of it. The wreaths, the ribbons, the songs about coming home. Because sometimes home is not where they welcome you. Sometimes home is where they learn exactly where to cut. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw Colin's car. Silver sedan. Small dent near the back bumper. I had driven him to pick it up from the shop after that dent happened. Of course I had. The house was bright, full, alive. I could hear music before I reached the porch. I balanced the trays against my hip and rang the bell. The music lowered. Footsteps came to the door. The deadbolt turned. Then the chain caught. Dad looked through the gap. He was wearing the green sweater I bought him last year. "Nora," he said. "Hi, Dad." I brought food. His eyes dropped to the trays. Behind him, Mom appeared. Her mouth tightened. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "It's Christmas Eve." Dad sighed like I had embarrassed him. "This is not a good time." I looked past his shoulder. Brooke stood near the stairs, holding a glass of wine. Aunt Marcy was behind her. Then Colin walked into view. For 1 second, our eyes met. His face drained. Then he turned and walked back into the dining room. That told me everything. I looked at Dad. "Colin is here." Mom whispered, "Nora, please don't make this difficult." Difficult. Dad's jaw tightened. "We wanted one night without tension. You've been intense lately. I've been asking what the plans are." "You make everything about what you've done for people," he snapped. "Every dollar. Every favor. Every little rescue. It's exhausting. Exhausting. Not helpful. Not loyal. Not daughter. Exhausting." My fingers tightened around the trays. For years, I thought the worst thing they could do was not appreciate me. I was wrong. The worst thing they could do was use me, resent me for being useful, and then ask me to take the blame for the damage they caused. I said, "Were you going to ask me to sign something after dessert?" Dad went still. Mom's face changed. Brooke whispered, "Oh my God." The house behind them became silent. Dad lowered his voice. "You went through your mother's computer? You used my social security number. That is not what this is." "That is exactly what this is." He opened the door as far as the chain allowed, like 3 more inches made him powerful. "You need to calm down." I almost smiled. There it was. The last shelter of guilty people. Calm down. I looked at Mom. "Did you sign my name too?" She started crying. Not answering. Just crying. Dad pointed through the gap. "We are family." We were going to explain. "No," I said. "You were going to trap me." My voice did not shake. Maybe because the part of me that used to beg had finally gone quiet. I set the cranberry rolls and casserole on the porch bench. "Merry Christmas," I said. Then I turned around. Dad shouted, "Nora, get back here." I kept walking. Behind me, the chain scraped. The door opened. I reached my car, got inside, and locked the doors. Dad came down the walkway red-faced. I picked up my phone. First, I called Harvest Federal Credit Union. "My name is Nora Whitaker," I said. "I am confirming identity theft on account ending 4419. I did not open this account. I have evidence, and I want to file a fraud affidavit. Yes, I am willing to cooperate with law enforcement." Dad banged on my window. I did not look at him. Then I called Northgate Motors. Then Riverline. Then I sent the full packet to my lawyer. Then I sent the forged insurance documents to the state insurance office. Then I sent the vendor files to the city licensing board. Finally, I texted Colin. "I know about the certificates. I know about Blue Ribbon. I revoked the guarantee." 3 dots appeared immediately. Then my phone rang. I answered. "Nora." Colin's voice cracked. "What did you do?" I watched him come out of my parents' house with his phone pressed to his ear. I told the truth. "You don't understand. They're freezing my permits. I have 3 events this week. You used my name. I was going to fix it. You forged my signature." He lowered his voice. "Brooke said your family would handle you." Handle me. There it was. Not love me. Not thank me. Handle me. I looked through the windshield at the house. Warm light poured from every window, but it did not look warm anymore. It looked like a stage set after the actors forgot their lines. "You all thought I was the problem," I said. "So I removed myself. Now all that's left is what you did." "Nora, please. This could ruin me. You should have thought of that before you made me your safety net." "Nora." I hung up. Dad was still outside my car. He shouted through the glass, "You ungrateful girl. After everything we gave you." I looked at him then. Really looked. This man had let me pay for his mistakes and called it family. He had used my name and called it necessity. He had locked me outside and called it peace. I put the car in reverse. He stepped back fast. Mom stood on the porch with both hands over her mouth. Brooke was crying in the doorway. Colin stood in the yard, staring at his phone as if the screen had betrayed him. I drove away before any of them could become human enough to hurt me again. The call started before I reached the main road. Dad. Mom. Brooke. Colin. Aunt Marcy. Mom again. I turned the phone off. For the first time in weeks, the silence felt clean. The legal part was not quick. People like neat endings, but real consequences move through forms, signatures, interviews, and waiting rooms. Dad was investigated for identity theft and forgery. Mom was named as a participant because her email and laptop had been used for several documents. Brooke's fake consulting company was audited. Colin's event company lost its permits, while the state reviewed the forged insurance certificates. There were lawyers. There were letters. There were relatives who called me cruel. Aunt Marcy left a voicemail saying, "Your parents made mistakes, but you only get one family." I deleted it. Because that sentence is only used on the person who is hurt. Nobody called my father and said, "You only get one daughter." Nobody called my mother and said, "You do not steal from your child." Nobody called Brooke and said, "Your sister is not an ATM with a heartbeat." So I stopped listening. I changed my number. I moved apartments. I locked my credit. I gave every document to my lawyer and let him become the wall between me and the people who had mistaken my kindness for permission. Dad took a plea. Mom avoided jail, but not restitution. Brooke closed Blue Ribbon Strategy before it ever became more than a mailbox and a lie. Colin moved 2 counties away after his company collapsed. I heard he blamed me for years. Maybe he still does. That is the strange comfort of finally having boundaries. People can blame you from the other side of them. They just cannot reach you there. 5 years later, I live in a small blue house near Lake Erie. It has a narrow porch, old wooden floors, and a kitchen window that catches the morning sun. My dog, Juniper, sleeps under the table while I cook. She is missing part of one ear and believes every visitor has come specifically to admire her. It is Christmas Eve again. I am making soup, bread, roasted carrots, and cranberry rolls. At 6, cars pull up outside. My friends arrive carrying flowers, cookies, board games, and too many bottles of sparkling cider. They kick snow from their boots and come in laughing. Nobody asks what I brought. Nobody tells me I am too much. Nobody makes me earn my seat. Later, when everyone is crowded around my table, I look toward the front door. It is wide open because 2 more friends are coming up the steps. Cold air rushes in. Juniper barks like the world is ending. And I laugh. Because once I stood outside a door with food in my hands, waiting for people who had already decided I did not belong. Now I open my own door. I choose who comes in. And the warmth inside this house is not something I begged for. It is something I built. They thought I was nothing without them. But the truth was simpler than that. I was the one holding the house up. And when I finally walked away, I did not collapse. They did.